It was a quiet afternoon at the small barber shop where Sarah had worked for the past 5 years. Business had been slow for weeks, and today wasn't any different. The air was thick with the smell of hair products, and the dull hum of the ceiling fan was the only sound in the room. Sarah stood by the counter, glancing out the window into the sleepy street outside, lost in thought about the bills piling up at home. The door chimed, interrupting her thoughts. A man walked in, a veteran, she guessed, based on the worn military patches stitched onto his jacket. His face was lined with age, fatigue, and perhaps more than a few difficult memories. His shoulders slouched as if the weight of the world rested on him. He approached the counter with hesitant steps, his eyes darting nervously, as if unsure whether he should even be there. "How much for a trim?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. His hand trembled as he pulled out his wallet, fumbling with crumpled bills and loose change. Sarah glanced down at the scattered coins, knowing they weren't enough. She could see the man's embarrassment written all over his face, and it tugged at her heart. Without hesitation, she smiled warmly. "Don't worry about it," she said softly. "This one's on me." For a moment, the man just stared at her, as if he didn't understand what she had said. His eyes grew moist with gratitude, and he nodded, unable to find the right words to thank her. He sat down in the chair, his hands gripping the armrests as though they were lifelines. As Sarah began trimming his hair, she thought about her father, who had served in the military. This small gesture was her way of giving back, of honoring the sacrifices made by men like him. The silence between them was comfortable, the sound of scissors cutting through the air, each snip a reminder of the connection they shared without even knowing each other's names. When she finished, the man looked in the mirror and smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that transformed his weary face. He stood up and shook her hand, his voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you, for more than just the haircut." Sarah watched as he left the shop, his step lighter, his back a little straighter. She felt good knowing she had made a difference, however small. But little did she know, her small act of kindness was about to turn her world upside down. Before continuing, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. This really helps a lot and allows us to keep bringing you more amazing content. Your support makes all the difference to us. Now let's continue. As soon as the veteran left, Sarah's heart soared with the joy of her good deed. She had made a difference in someone's life, even if it was just for a moment. But that joy was short-lived. The front door swung open violently, and in stormed her boss, Mr. Randall, his face a portrait of fury. The shop was nearly empty, and the air thick with tension as he strode toward her, his eyes blazing like hot coals. "What do you think you're doing, Sarah?" he bellowed, his voice echoing off the walls. The sound reverberated in her chest, making her stomach churn with anxiety. She turned to face him, the warmth in her heart rapidly cooling to fear. I was just helping him," she stammered, trying to keep her voice steady. "He couldn't afford the cut, so I did it for free. It was only one time." Mr. Randall's face darkened, turning a deep shade of crimson that almost matched the red of his barber's cape. "You don't get to make that decision. This is a business, not a charity. Do you think we can survive by giving away free services? You've cost me money and I won't tolerate it. You're fired." The word hit Sarah like a punch to the gut, leaving her breathless. For a fleeting moment, the world around her blurred as she struggled to process what he had just said. "Fired?" She opened her mouth to speak, but the words stuck in her throat. She tried to explain herself, her voice trembling with desperation. "But he was a veteran. I don't care," Mr. Randall snapped, cutting her off with a wave of his hand. "Pack your things and get out. You've disgraced this shop." Tears stung Sarah's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She held her head high, even as her heart felt heavy in her chest. She had done what she thought was right, had acted on her compassion for another human being, and now she was paying the price. The weight of his words settled around her like a heavy fog, suffocating her spirit. With a shaky breath, Sarah turned and walked to her station, her feet feeling as though they were leaden. She began packing her belongings, her scissors, combs, and the small hand-painted sign that said, "Haircuts with Heart." Each item felt like a cherished memory, now tinged with sadness. The shop had been her second home, a place where she poured her passion and creativity into every haircut. "Do you understand what you've done?" Mr. Randall continued, his voice laced with anger. "You've embarrassed me in front of customers. You think this is just a game? People come here to pay for services, not receive handouts." Sarah wanted to argue, to tell him that kindness was never a game, but instead she took a deep breath and remained silent. The tears threatened to spill, but she blinked them back, focusing instead on the task at hand. As she gathered her things, she stole a glance toward the mirror and saw a reflection that barely resembled herself. The vibrant, confident woman who had embraced her role as a stylist seemed to be fading. In her place was a defeated girl with a heart full of compassion, but also confusion about what had just transpired. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Sarah packed the last of her belongings. She took one last look around the shop, her heart aching for the relationships she had built with her clients and co-workers. But she was leaving for a reason. She had stood up for what she believed was right. With that thought, she squared her shoulders and walked toward the door. Just as she reached for the handle, a voice called out from behind her, "Sarah, wait!" It was one of her regular clients, Mrs. Thompson, a kind elderly woman who always wore bright floral dresses and came in every Saturday for her weekly trim. Sarah turned, hope flickering in her heart. "What is it, Mrs. Thompson?" "I heard what happened," the woman said, concern etched on her face. "You didn't deserve that. You were just trying to help." "Thank you, but it's fine," Sarah replied, though her voice wavered. "I made my choice, and now I have to live with the consequences." "No, you don't," Mrs. Thompson insisted, stepping closer. "You should know that there are people out there who appreciate what you did. Your kindness matters." Before Sarah could respond, the bell above the door jingled again. Before she could turn to see who it was, Mr. Randall's voice cut through the moment, his annoyance palpable. "Mrs. Thompson, please don't encourage this behavior. It's unprofessional." But Mrs. Thompson wouldn't back down. "Mr. Randall, I've been coming here for years, and I've seen how you treat your employees. Sarah has a heart of gold, and you're making a grave mistake letting her go." "Get out, both of you," Mr. Randall shouted, his temper flaring as he stepped closer. "You're not welcome here anymore." With a mix of anger and sadness, Sarah turned away, grabbing her things as she pushed through the door. Once outside, she took a deep breath, allowing the cool air to fill her lungs. She had done what she thought was right, and no one could take that away from her. But as she stood there, clutching her box of belongings, doubt began to creep in. Where would she go now? How would she pay her bills? The questions hung heavy in the air, but before she could spiral into despair, she heard a low rumble in the distance. Glancing up, she saw a sleek black car pull up in front of the barber shop, the engine purring as it came to a stop. Curiosity piqued, Sarah wiped away a tear and straightened her posture. Maybe, just maybe, the universe had something in store for her after all. Sarah sat on the cold concrete curb outside the barber shop, her small box of belongings resting on her knees. The world around her felt as though it was spinning in slow motion, and the cacophony of life continued without her. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows on the pavement, but the warmth it provided did little to chase away the chill of her recent firing. Fired for being kind. The thought echoed in her mind like a cruel joke, taunting her. How would she explain this to her family? How could she tell them that she lost her job for something so seemingly innocent? A knot twisted in her stomach, heavy with anxiety and uncertainty. What would her father think? He had always taught her to stand up for what was right, but now she felt as if she were spiraling into an abyss of hopelessness. Just then, a sleek black car pulled up in front of the shop, the engine humming softly before it fell silent. Sarah barely noticed it at first, too lost in her thoughts. But as the driver's door opened, the sound of polished shoes clicking against the pavement caught her attention. She looked up, and her breath hitched in her throat. Out stepped a tall man, dressed in a sharply tailored suit, exuding an air of authority and grace. He scanned the area, his gaze sharp and focused, before walking directly toward her. Sarah quickly wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, trying to regain some semblance of composure. "Excuse me," he said, his voice deep and commanding, yet warm. "Are you the woman who gave a veteran a free haircut earlier today?" Sarah blinked, the words struggling to form on her lips. "Yes, that was me," she replied cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. Who was this man? And why was he interested in her? The man smiled warmly, and a flicker of recognition sparked in her mind. I'm Mayor Thompson. That veteran is a close friend of mine. He called me just after he left here, telling me how moved he was by your kindness. I came here to meet you in person. The gravity of his words hit her like a wave, sweeping away her doubts and fears for a moment. The mayor? Here for her? Her mind raced, processing the implications of his presence. You came to see me? She stammered, still in disbelief. Yes, I did, Mayor Thompson replied, his expression sincere. I've heard so many stories of people doing good in our community, but your act stood out to me. You didn't have to help him, yet you chose to. That kind of selflessness deserves recognition. For a brief moment, Sarah was speechless. Recognition? For something she considered a simple act of kindness? I didn't think it was a big deal, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. On the contrary, he said, kneeling down to her level, it's a huge deal. In times like these, when so many are struggling, a little kindness can go a long way. You've reminded me why I got into public service in the first place, to uplift people, to shine a light in the dark. Sarah felt warmth flooding her cheeks, not just from embarrassment, but from the unexpected appreciation. Thank you, she managed to say, her voice trembling slightly. I just wanted to help. He looked like he needed it. I understand, that's the kind of person you are, and I'd like to help you in return, Mayor Thompson continued, a glimmer of hope shining in his eyes. I've been looking to promote local businesses that show community spirit, and I think your barbershop should be one of them. How would you feel about helping me organize a community event to celebrate local heroes? You could be a featured stylist. Her heart raced at the idea, but a flicker of doubt crept in. But I just got fired, she admitted, glancing back at the barbershop, where the harsh words of her former boss still echoed in her ears. Mayor Thompson nodded, understanding her hesitation. I know, but that doesn't define your talent or your character. We need more people like you in our community, people who care and make a difference. As he spoke, Sarah felt the spark of hope reignite within her. This was an opportunity, a chance to rise above the circumstances that had felt so crushing only moments ago. I would love to help, she said, her voice steadier now. I want to make a difference. Excellent, Mayor Thompson exclaimed, standing up straight and offering her a hand. Let's discuss the details. I believe you have the potential to inspire others through this event. Together, we can show that kindness can bring about change, no matter how small. With that, Sarah stood, shaking the mayor's hand firmly. The warmth of his grip and the strength of his words filled her with determination. Thank you for believing in me, she said, her heart swelling with gratitude. Thank you for your kindness, he replied. Let's create something beautiful together. As they began to discuss plans, Sarah felt a shift in her spirit. She was no longer just the girl who lost her job. She was a catalyst for change, a voice for the voiceless. Her experience with Mr. Randall and his cruelty had forged a fire within her, one that she intended to use for good. They spent the next hour brainstorming ideas, discussing local businesses that could contribute, and envisioning how the event would unfold. Sarah's passion poured out as she spoke, and for the first time since leaving the barbershop, she felt alive and empowered. Before they parted ways, Mayor Thompson turned to her with a smile. I'll make sure everyone in the community hears about your story. We're going to do this together, Sarah. Your kindness deserves to be celebrated. As he climbed back into his sleek black car, Sarah felt an incredible sense of hope wash over her. She had stood up for what she believed was right, and now the universe was opening doors she had never imagined could be there. The bitter taste of her recent firing was replaced with the sweet anticipation of a new beginning, one where her kindness could shine brighter than ever. As the mayor drove away, Sarah looked up at the barbershop one last time, ready to close that chapter and embrace the future with open arms. The bustling streets of Maplewood thrummed with life as Mayor Thompson guided Sarah to a quaint cafe just a block away from the barbershop. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mixing with the sweet scent of pastries that tempted her senses. A bell chimed softly as they entered, welcoming them into the cozy space decorated with warm colors and eclectic artwork. Small tables were occupied by locals engaging in lively conversation, and Sarah felt a sense of normalcy amidst the whirlwind of her emotions. They settled into a corner booth, the soft murmur of chatter creating a comforting background. As steaming cups of coffee were placed before them, Sarah took a moment to steady her nerves, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. She felt a strange blend of excitement and apprehension coursing through her veins. Here was a man of influence, yet he had come to listen to her, a simple hairstylist with a heart full of compassion. As they sat across from each other, the initial awkwardness melted away. The mayor smiled at her, his eyes filled with genuine interest. "I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me, Sarah. It's not every day I get to speak with someone who has made such an impact in our community." Taking a deep breath, Sarah began recounting the events of the day. "I just wanted to help him," she said, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. "The veteran looked so lost and embarrassed. I couldn't just stand there and watch him struggle to pay for a simple haircut. I thought I was doing the right thing." As she spoke, she could see Mayor Thompson nodding along, his expression softening with empathy. "And you were," he replied gently. "What you did took courage, especially in a world that often forgets the importance of kindness. It's easy to become jaded in business, but you chose to do what was right." The words struck a chord deep within her. Sarah had been feeling so lost and ashamed since her firing, but here was someone who understood and valued her choice. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I just didn't think it would cost me my job." "Not everyone can see the bigger picture," the mayor continued, his tone serious. "But what you did has the power to inspire others. That's why I'm here to offer you an opportunity." Sarah's heart raced at his words, a mix of hope and skepticism swirling within her. "What do you mean?" she asked, leaning forward in her seat. "I'd like to offer you a position at City Hall," Mayor Thompson said, a glimmer of excitement in his eyes. "We're always looking for compassionate individuals, and I think you'd be perfect for a role working directly with veterans and the community. We need someone with your heart and understanding to help bridge the gap between our veterans and the resources they need." For a moment, Sarah was speechless. The world around her faded as the weight of his offer sunk in. Just hours ago, she had been fired from her job for a simple act of kindness. And now here she was, being offered something far beyond her wildest dreams. "Are you serious?" she managed to stammer, her heart pounding in disbelief. "Absolutely," Mayor Thompson replied, his gaze steady and sincere. "We need people who genuinely care about others, especially those who have sacrificed so much for our country. This position will give you a platform to help make real change in our community." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes again, but this time they were tears of gratitude and joy. She felt as though the universe had shifted in her favor, rewarding her act of kindness in a way she could have never imagined. I don't know what to say," she finally whispered, overwhelmed by the gravity of the moment. "You don't have to say anything right now," the mayor assured her, his voice soothing. "Take some time to think about it. This is a big decision, but I truly believe you'd excel in this role. We need passionate people like you who can connect with others on a personal level." "I've always wanted to help people, especially veterans," Sarah confessed, her mind racing. She thought of her father, how proud he would be to see her working in a role dedicated to helping those who had served. "This could be an amazing opportunity for me." "It is," Mayor Thompson said, leaning back in his seat. "You could organize events, outreach programs, and workshops that provide veterans with the support they need. You would be making a difference every single day." The more she thought about it, the more she could feel the excitement bubbling within her. This was a chance to channel her compassion into something tangible, to honor the sacrifices of veterans, and to build connections in her community. But the shadows of her recent dismissal loomed in her mind, casting doubts over her enthusiasm. "But what if I fail? What if I can't do it?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Everyone has doubts when faced with new challenges," Mayor Thompson said, his tone encouraging. "What matters is that you're willing to try. You've already proven you have the heart for this work. Remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about showing up, being present, and caring for others." His words resonated deeply within her, igniting a fire of determination. She had faced adversity before. She could do it again. "Okay," she said, her voice steadying. "I'll do it. I'll accept the position." Mayor Thompson's face broke into a wide smile, and he reached across the table to shake her hand. Fantastic. I'm thrilled to have you on board, Sarah. We'll start by introducing you to the team and going over the initiatives we currently have in place. You'll have all the support you need. As they discussed the details, Sarah felt a wave of purpose wash over her. This was her chance to turn a difficult situation into something meaningful. The weight of her recent firing began to lift, replaced by the exhilaration of new beginnings. After their meeting, they stepped out of the cafe, the sun shining brightly in the sky. Sarah could feel the warmth on her face, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to dream about what the future could hold. She had a vision of organizing a community event to honor veterans, perhaps a day filled with activities that highlighted their sacrifices and provided resources for their reintegration into civilian life. As she and Mayor Thompson walked back toward City Hall, she glanced at her surroundings. The town seemed brighter, filled with possibilities. She could hear the laughter of children playing in the park nearby and see the smiles of people as they went about their day. For the first time, she felt a part of something bigger, a movement fueled by kindness and compassion. "Thank you for believing in me," Sarah said to the mayor as they approached the entrance of City Hall. "It's easy to believe in someone with your spirit," he replied. "Let's make some waves together, shall we?" "Yes, let's," Sarah agreed, her heart racing with anticipation. As they entered the building, she felt a sense of belonging wash over her. This was the start of a new chapter in her life, one filled with promise and purpose. She was no longer just a hairstylist. She was now an advocate, a voice for those who had fought for her freedom, and she was ready to embrace the journey ahead. A week had passed since that fateful meeting with Mayor Thompson, and Sarah found herself standing in the grand lobby of City Hall, her heart fluttering with a mix of excitement and nerves. The tall ceilings echoed with the chatter of visitors and the shuffling of feet on the polished marble floor. The air buzzed with purpose, a palpable energy that reminded her of the importance of the work she was about to embark on. Dressed in a crisp navy blazer, Sarah took a moment to compose herself. She had transformed from a barbershop stylist to a community outreach coordinator, a role she had never dreamed of but was now embracing with open arms. As she glanced at her reflection in the glass, she barely recognized herself. The woman staring back exuded confidence and resolve, a stark contrast to the uncertainty she had felt just days earlier. Her office, a small but bright space with a large window overlooking the bustling city below, was a whirlwind of activity. Sarah had already met with her team, a diverse group of passionate individuals, each dedicated to supporting the veterans of their community. They had welcomed her warmly, excited about the fresh perspective she brought. Sarah had dove headfirst into her new responsibilities, organizing initiatives that would create meaningful change for those who had served their country. Every day in her new role felt like a new adventure. She had spent the first few days familiarizing herself with the various programs and resources available for veterans, as well as the challenges they faced when reintegrating into civilian life. Many had struggled with finding jobs, securing housing, and accessing the health care they needed. Sarah felt a deep sense of responsibility to help these brave men and women, remembering the gratitude in the veterans' eyes from the barbershop that had set her on this path. One of her first projects was a job fair, specifically for veterans, designed to connect them with potential employers who understood their unique skills and experiences. The planning process was intense, filled with late nights and brainstorming sessions with her team. Sarah poured her heart into the event, wanting to ensure that every veteran who attended left feeling valued and hopeful about their future. As the day of the job fair approached, anticipation and anxiety filled the air. Sarah felt the weight of her new role on her shoulders, wondering if she could truly make a difference. She often caught herself reminiscing about her past at the barbershop, the simplicity of cutting hair, and the joy of making someone feel better. But now, her impact was much broader, and the stakes were higher. On the morning of the job fair, Sarah arrived early, her excitement palpable. The venue was buzzing with energy as vendors set up their booths and volunteers prepared welcome packets filled with resources and information. The atmosphere was electric, filled with the sounds of laughter and chatter, the scent of fresh coffee wafting through the air. As the doors opened, veterans began to trickle in, some looking apprehensive, others eager to explore the opportunities laid out before them. Sarah stood at the entrance, greeting each person with a warm smile, her heart swelling with pride as she saw their faces light up. She knew firsthand how important this event was for them, a chance to step into a brighter future. As the day progressed, Sarah navigated through the bustling crowd, checking in with the vendors and ensuring that everything ran smoothly. She engaged in conversations with veterans, listening to their stories and aspirations. Each encounter deepened her understanding of their struggles and strengthened her resolve to help. One particular veteran stood out, a man named Tom, who had recently returned from service and was struggling to find work. "Thank you for organizing this," Tom said, his voice filled with gratitude. "It means a lot to have a place to come and connect with employers who get it. I've been searching for months." Sarah smiled, her heart aching for his situation. "I'm so glad you came, Tom. Remember, you have so much to offer. Your skills are valuable. Don't give up hope." Tom nodded, his expression softening. "I won't. I've been feeling lost, but today gives me a glimmer of hope." As the event unfolded, Sarah felt the weight of her responsibilities lift. The atmosphere was filled with laughter, networking, and hope. She witnessed veterans connecting with employers, sharing their experiences, and discovering opportunities that could change their lives. It was everything she had envisioned and more. By the end of the day, Sarah stood back, her heart full as she watched the success of the event unfold. She felt a sense of accomplishment that was unlike anything she had experienced before. She realized that the kindness she had shown in the barbershop had come full circle. Each smile, each handshake, and each story exchanged was a testament to the power of compassion and community. As the day wound down, the mayor arrived to congratulate her on the successful job fair. He approached her with a wide smile, pride shining in his eyes. "You did an incredible job, Sarah. This was a huge success, and it's all thanks to your hard work and dedication." "Thank you, Mayor Thompson. I couldn't have done it without my team," she replied, beaming with joy. "You've shown everyone the impact that kindness can have. This is just the beginning. There's so much more we can do together," he said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. That night, as Sarah drove home, her heart was filled with warmth and gratitude. She had gone from being fired for an act of kindness to spearheading a project that directly impacted the lives of those who had served. The journey had been unpredictable, but it had led her to a place where she felt she truly belonged. Looking out at the city lights twinkling in the distance, Sarah realized that her life had taken an extraordinary turn. She had discovered a purpose that filled her with passion and excitement. It was a reminder that even in the face of adversity, good things could emerge from seemingly hopeless situations. Over the following weeks, Sarah continued to build on her role at City Hall, organizing more outreach programs and community events. She collaborated with local organizations to create workshops that offered veterans valuable resources, such as financial literacy, mental health support, and career development. The impact of her efforts began to ripple through the community, bringing hope and healing to those who had sacrificed so much. One day, while attending a community meeting, Sarah met a veteran named Mark, who had recently transitioned back to civilian life. He shared his struggles and triumphs, and Sarah could see the fire in his eyes as he spoke about his dreams. Inspired by his determination, she offered him an opportunity to lead a workshop for fellow veterans, empowering him to share his story and encourage others. As Mark took the stage at the next community event, Sarah watched with pride as he spoke to a room filled with veterans, his voice strong and confident. The workshop was a resounding success, and many in the audience expressed their appreciation for Mark's authenticity and vulnerability. That moment solidified Sarah's belief that change was not just about providing resources, but also about empowering individuals to find their voices. Reflecting on her journey, Sarah knew that the reward for her kindness had not only changed her life, but had also touched the lives of many others. She had learned that even the smallest acts of compassion could create a ripple effect, inspiring others to step forward and contribute to their community. As she sat in her office one day, gazing out at the vibrant city below, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. Life had an unpredictable way of rewarding those who acted with kindness, and she had discovered that sometimes the greatest opportunities come from the most unlikely places. With her heart full of gratitude, she made a promise to herself. She would continue to be a beacon of hope for others, sharing her passion for helping those in need. because she knew that every small act of kindness had the potential to change a life forever. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more like it, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the story and share any themes or ideas you'd like to hear in future stories. Your feedback means the world to me. Thanks for watching.